It's now my great pleasure to ask Judge Phatshoane to come and give the opening address. She has previously done this, and if she remembers, the last one was so fantastic. I described it as the overture to a symphony, where she touched on every single topic that we were going to deal with in the conference. So we're expecting a similar performance from her today. But we all know Judge Phatshoane. She is the Deputy Judge President of the Labour Court and the Labour Appeal Court. She started as an attorney last century in 1995 at Nordea's Attorneys in Bloemfontein. She became a partner in 2002 and headed their Labour Department, and then she spearheaded the establishment of Phatshoane Henny Inc. and the creation of that network of law firms, which before she left to join the bench had 23 member firms with approximately 250 professionals and 800 staff members in 8 provinces. I don't think I need to say much more because she's a figure known to us. So thank you very much, Judge.
They say, oh my God, I see the way you shine. Take your hand, my dear, and place them both in mine. You know you stopped me dead while I was passing by. And now I beg to see you dance just one more time.
Thank you for that introduction. Program Director, the President of SASLAW, and your Executive Committee, the delegates present, and the delegates joining us virtually, and speakers, it gives me a great pleasure to welcome you very heartily to the South African Society for Labour Law 23rd Annual Hybrid Conference, hosted at this ever-enchanting, rainy city of Johannesburg. Please allow me to thank the South African Society for Labour Law for its tireless efforts through the years to host this important conference, and for always compiling a thought-provoking and engaging program. The Labour Court community and I feel deeply honored and privileged to give this opening address. The year 2020 has been most difficult globally due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, which brought about untold human suffering, the most catastrophic event since the 2019 Great Depression. It has devastatingly affected the world of work and threatened the labor peace. The national lockdown that began on 27 March 2020 following its outbreak pushed the country into unparalleled economic decline, with most industries experiencing a massive drop in output. Since the declaration of the national state of disaster, the lockdown period, we have observed employees being retrenched, some laid off, and salaries being reduced by the employers to keep afloat by employing various austerity measures. There is nothing painful as losing a job, as painful as having to face life without any source of income for sustenance of their families, with the concomitant prospects of bank foreclosing or repossessing a home. These are the litigants that you assist on a daily basis before the labor courts to assert their rights. Job losses adversely and severely impacts the dignity of persons and their livelihoods. Security of employment is a core value of the Constitution, which has been given effect to by the Labour Relations Act. The global labor force has suffered loss to this right as a result of the pandemic. In South Africa, it was reported that more than 2 million people lost their jobs in the second quarter of this year. Our formal sector employees were the hardest hit. Our economy contracted by 16.4% compared to the previous quarter. The National Treasury expected a significant shortfall in revenue collection. According to the quarterly employment statistics survey released by the Statistics South Africa, Stats SA, the formal non-agricultural sector shed 648,000 jobs in the second quarter of 2020, which brought down the total number of persons employed in formal non-agricultural sector in South Africa to 9.5 million. The President announced on 15 October 2020, during his address to the joint sitting of Parliament on South Africa's economic reconstruction and recovery plan, that the special COVID-19 grant in particular represent a significant achievement, reaching more than 6 million unemployed people in a short space of time. More than 960,000 companies have benefited through the UIF wage support scheme and through the grants and loans provided by various government departments and public entities. More than 4 million workers have received 49 billion in wage support, helping to protect these jobs even while companies were not able to operate or do so optimally. In addition to those businesses that have received direct support, many more companies have benefited from tax relief measures worth in the region of 40 billion. Despite the unprecedented high unemployment figures, we remain optimistic as business, labor, government continue to find sustainable ways to build the economy through job creation to mitigate the impact of COVID-19. Former United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon once said that when young people have decent jobs, political weight, negotiating muscles, and real influence in the world, they will create a better future. The President announced on 15 October 2020 that creation of jobs is at the center of the reconstruction and recovery plan. He said, we must get our people back into the jobs they've lost in the pandemic. We are determined to create more employment opportunity for those who were unemployed before the pandemic or who had given up looking for work. 2 days ago, on 3 November 2020, the President further remarked at the Infrastructure South Africa project, a preparation roundtable and marketplace held at Gallagher Estate in Midrand, that the government priority was to drive the implementation of South African economic reconstruction and recovery plan by inter alia prioritizing economic reforms to unlock investment growth, fighting crime and corruption, driving industrialization with a focus on growing small businesses, improving the capability of the state, and creating jobs through mass public employment programs. He mentioned that throughout, the focus will be on catalyzing job creation and ensuring that local business benefit. Over the next 4 years, it is hoped to unlock 1 trillion in infrastructure investment. Truth be told, we have moved into uncharted waters. It is no longer business as usual in any workplace. Things have evolved, which would require us to reposition and reshape our future. Contingency plans and certain adjustments would have to be put in place in harmony with a new normal way of life in order to ensure that those employees who can work from their homes are provided with the necessary tools of trade to discharge their obligations by introducing shift systems, by managing absenteeisms in respect of those employees who are placed on quarantine, and providing reasonable accommodation to employees as circumstances require. The Director General of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNIDO, writes that lack of access to innovation and advanced technologies has implication for advancing digital transformation of industry. In particular, small and medium enterprises are still encountering obstacles in deploying digital solutions due to lack of resources, skills, and interoperability issues. Moreover, women and girls are disproportionately affected by the limited access to digitalization, which suggests a strong need to improve gender equality and inclusive skills and investment. Digital technology has become our new way of life. Work had to continue during the national lockdown period and had to be facilitated through the use of IT systems. Inequality in our society saw many employees being unable to perform their duties from home due to lack of resources and proper IT infrastructure. This disparity, known as the digital divide, has been one of the barriers of access to justice. Chief Justice Mogoeng at the opening of the Provincial Case Flow Management Workshop held in Port Alfred on 19 July, almost a decade ago, 2012, said the following on access to justice. And I quote him, "It is not a matter disputed much that in this country, the poor suffer most from an ineffective and inefficient justice system, while our Constitution guarantees every individual the right to protection of the law and equal access to justice. The reality is that those without economic resources are the worst affected in terms of access to justice. Access to justice has grown to become part of good governance and is a central building block for economic and social reform and the promotion and protection of human rights. It is inseparable from struggle for social and economic justice and the struggle for economic survival. All these are linked to the concept of respect for the dignity of the human person, an acceptance that everyone possesses inherent worth, and this is not diminished by poverty and lack of resources, be they special, economic, or social. With the advent of novel coronavirus, access to justice through virtual platforms by many of our litigants proved to be very difficult. We saw SASLAW step up, taking charge and ensuring through their pro bono offices that many of our litigants who live on the margins have access to justice by attending to issues of concern electronically. On behalf of the Judge President, the Labour Court community and I would like to sincerely thank you for your continued commitment to this worthy cause. I know that since the inception of SASLAW Pro Bono Office in 2011 to date, it has assisted over 30,000 clients. That is a remarkable feat, and it deserves a round of applause, a big round of applause. I would like to focus my attention to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs as they are commonly known, which are part of the wider 2030 agenda for sustainable development. The adversity caused by the pandemic impacted on the progress made towards the achievement of sustainable development goals. These SDGs are interconnected, but many of them have a bearing on employment and labor relations. Inter alia, gender equality, SDG 5, decent work and economic growth, SDG 8, industry innovation and infrastructure, SDG 9, reduced inequalities, SDG 10, responsible consumption and production, SDG 11, and peace and justice, SDG 16. The presidency reported during 2019 that although sustainable development objectives are integrated into government planning systems and processes at national, provincial, and local level, much more needs to be done to ensure that all national stakeholders are more effectively engaged in delivering, providing a better life for all. This is where the involvement of SASLAW to this discourse becomes pivotal. Through your robust debates on these issues, you will most certainly contribute to the South African labor relations landscape and assist in achieving the SDG 2030 targets. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to very briefly touch on 3 of the SDGs, decent work and economic growth, SDG 8. amongst other targets set to be achieved by 2030, is full and productive employment and decent work for all women and men, including young people and persons with disabilities, and equal pay for work of equal value, protection, labor rights, and protection of labor rights and promotion of safe and working environments for all workers, including migrant workers, in particular women migrants, and those in precarious employment. Businesses are engines for creation and economic growth, for job creation rather, and economic growth, and foster economic activity through their value chain. Decent work opportunities are good for business and society. Companies that uphold labor standards across their own operations and value chains face lower risk of reputational damage and legal liability. Institutions, non-discriminatory practices, and embracing diversity and inclusion will also lead to greater access to skilled, productive talent. And this was said in the SDG Compass, the role of business. Gender equality is more than a goal in itself, that is SGD 5. It is a precondition for meeting the challenge of reducing poverty, promoting sustainable development, and building good governance. Kofi Annan said, the former UN Secretary General, despite women making up just half of the population, they remain relatively unrepresented in positions of authority and power. Gender inequality impedes growth and denies women the ability to participate fully and effectually in shaping our new democratic dispensation. Although systemic patterns of gender inequality may be visible in numerous facets, women continue to make profound contribution towards eradicating barriers that inhibit their growth in South Africa, and has made significant progress. South Africa itself, as a country, has also made significant progress to offset gender oppression through various legislative mechanisms that affirms the democratic values of human dignity, equality, and freedom, and safeguards against gender-based discrimination in workplace and in various sectors of society. However, the challenges abound, and it is through organizations such as SASLAW to deal with those challenges, to ensure that we meet the 2030 sustainable development targets that has been set. Building resilient infrastructure, promoting inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and fostering innovation, that is SDG 9, is also very important in this day and age of the 4IR. The pandemic and related containment measures have given a strong push for innovation and digital transformation, leading many to consider structural shift towards the fourth industrial revolution. The effects of the experience with COVID-19 crisis will be long-lasting, and the post-pandemic world will increasingly be driven by the 4IR technologies and their application for inclusive and sustainable industrial development. I note with humility that you will be reflecting on the post-pandemic labor law, best practices for adapting your workplace to our strange world. This is a digital age. We have to find cutting-edge, innovative ways of dealing with the new normal to achieve what has been termed ambitious SDGs. Multi-stakeholder partnerships involving government, the private sector, and civil society is required. As SASLAW, we need to have conversations on these SDGs, interrogate them, and see how we can contribute to see to it that these goals are realized by 2030. You are here because you share the vision an idea of decent job creation, thriving businesses, excellence, and success in all walks of life. For this reason, you will be rather engaging in wide-ranging topics. One of the subjects for discussion is the role of trade unions in enhancing work engagement, work commitment, job satisfaction, job performance in a government institution. We all know that trade unions have played a significant role in improving employees' conditions of service through collective bargaining processes. They assert their members' rights, promote equal opportunities of employment, offer training, and provide a myriad of other services to their members. Trade unions provide a platform for discussions and negotiations between the employees and the employers. This creates a mutually beneficial relationship between the employers and the employees, which is founded on trust, naturally, where employees are satisfied with their work performance, production levels are also increased. Good people, you have also converged here because it is important to keep up to speed with current and forthcoming developments in labor law. Inter alia, the labor law amendments over the past 4 years and the pending amendments in 2020, the recent decisions of the labor courts, the Labor Appeal Court, and the Constitutional Court, learning from some of the best practices in other jurisdictions, for example, dismissals in Canada, and so forth. As we turn our backs to serve our clients, let us do so with the utmost degree of diligence, remembering that we are statutorily enjoined to resolve labor disputes expeditiously. There is a bit of a concern that some of the practitioners delay finalization of labor disputes and do not file proper papers, let alone file proper heads of arguments. Please let us know if we could be of any assistance. We will gladly step in and offer some guidance and training. In conclusion, I said a mouthful about the coronavirus adversities. I want to emphasize, though, that nothing stays the same. There is a glimmer of hope, and in good time, some of the challenges we face today will certainly taper off and disperse. I wish you a very successful, interactive, and thought-provoking conference. I thank you for listening.